What is up, plant people? Hey, it's time once more for the Planthropology Podcast, the show where we dive into the lives, careers, and general awesomeness of some very cool plant people to figure out why they do what they do and what keeps them coming back for more. I'm Vikram Baliga, your host and your humble guide in this journey through the sciences, and as always, my friends, I'm so excited to be with you today. Y'all, this is my first interview episode in many months, all the months. So many moons, and I am so excited about this one, y'all. So I'm just going to jump right into it. So my guest today is known as Swifty on the interwebs and in the roller derby rank. Elizabeth Kelly is a PhD student at Penn State and a science communicator and an assistant greenhouse manager. Assistant to the greenhouse manager? Anyway, and one of my favorite people, we've been friends on TikTok and Instagram and on the interwebs for quite a while. And pretty much from the first time I saw her video and we became mutuals, I was like, I have to talk to this person. She has to be on the podcast. And 2 years went by and finally we got a chance where my brain worked well enough to set it all up and we got to record and y'all are in for a treat. You're in for a treat, my friend. And we talked about everything from life inside a greenhouse to, roller derby and how we get to the places we are. We talked about careers inside and outside academia, science education, science communication, how terrible of a plant Arabidopsis is, and so many other good things. So y'all are going to love this one. I loved this one. It's funny, and this is just an aside real quick. As I listen to this podcast, as I edit it, I listen to my guests and I am just blown away by how great they are consistently every time. And I find that this is a podcast that I would listen to. And if you're listening to it, I'm glad that it's a podcast you would listen to as well. So pull up a chair, strap on your derby skates, and get ready for episode 92 of the Planthropology Podcast with my friend, Elizabeth Kelly. I'm so excited. I just have to fanboy a little bit because you were one of the first people I think I followed when I was really getting into TikTok. And I actually remember it was the video of you catching that cactus. And then there was a follow-up one not long ago where you had I don't know what kind of leaf it was. You had water in it and there were googly eyes in it. And I was like, this is my kind of person. And so I've been wanting to interview for the show for a long time. And I'm so excited to get to talk to you.
Well, I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy you asked me. I think you're probably one of my oldest TikTok mutuals. Mm-hmm. So I've obviously been watching all your videos, and it's definitely the googly eyes in common makes me feel like we're already friends. We're already there. But hi, yeah, I'm Elizabeth. This is the first time I think on the internet I've said my full name in conjunction with my TikTok. So this is a very momentous moment for me. Most people know me from TikTok, old crotch face, or my other name, Swifty, which is genuinely, truly what most people call me in my everyday life. So this is really, this is really fun. I like this.
Where did that come from?
It's my roller derby name. So I've been playing roller derby since 2015. And once upon a time, a real long time ago, I sang with Taylor Swift before she was famous. And it was a running joke that I looked like her, but then she got bangs and we grew apart. But I still just kept Swifty as the nickname. Wait,
we cannot, I can't, I cannot skip past that. I don't know if we should talk about this now or later, but we're just going to go for it. How did you end up singing with Taylor Swift? How did this happen?
So I was a professional children's choir kid. And we did the national anthem project in 2007. So from St. Louis, my choir flew to DC, and from DC, we bussed to Annapolis at 3:00 in the morning to do a Jeep commercial in a parking lot in Annapolis. And Taylor Swift was there, and she sang the national anthem with us, and then immediately did an interview on the Today Show, because apparently it was 2 days after our song came out. I didn't know who she was. No one knew who she was. And I've never seen the commercial, so I don't think it may have all just been a fever dream, but I do still have the Jeep t-shirt. So there's that.
Wow. That was not a story I was expecting, and I'm glad to know that about you. That's awesome. It's funny. I have a couple of coworkers, grad students here that are like massive Taylor Swift fans, and
Oh, really?
they're gonna love the story. Yeah, yeah.
It's ironic because I've been to a concert. That's about as far as the fandom goes. I went, I saw it. Ed Sheeran was there too. That's about all I could tell you.
Wow.
And I do know she has a song named Betty, which is again probably as close as we're gonna intersect again ever.
Yeah, yeah. That's amazing. Okay. Anyway, that has nothing to do with plants, but I don't know if you watched my brain's like gears just grind to a halt. I was like, I'm sorry. So we'll move on. So you're a PhD student at Penn State, right? And
Yes.
You run a greenhouse.
I helped run a greenhouse. That's giving a lot of credit to me. I helped run a greenhouse.
Okay. Well, it is always a team effort for sure.
Yes.
But why don't you introduce yourself a little bit more? Where are you from? What did you do? How did you get into what you do today?
Yeah, so what I do is I'm a grad student. Specifically, I study parasitic plants, and I work in this greenhouse, which is really unique in that it's not like a production greenhouse and it's not just a research greenhouse. There's a lot of weird collections. So my advisor asked me to apply to work in the greenhouse so we could keep an eye on our specific interests in the greenhouse. So it was a little bit of like plant nepotism. He wanted me to make sure that like our Amberella didn't die, because Amberella is a really unique and weird plant, and we wanted to make sure that it survived. But how I got into plants, it doesn't make any sense. I'm not from anywhere. I've moved around a lot. I'm what me and my one singular friend who grew up the same way that I did, we call ourselves energy brats because both of our fathers worked in like Exxon Mobil, Shell, like that. And so we moved around doing that, and we managed to find each other in college, and we had a lot of similarities. And so we deemed ourselves energy brats. And I went to college at the University of Virginia, which is not known for plants. It's not known for anything other than pre-med. Actually, when you go there, there is biology. No other options. Like you can't even specialize. You can't even be like, I'm biology with a concentration in this.
Oh, wow.
So how I ended up in plants is really weird. I just remember my first year of college, I knew I wanted to do research, and all of these labs you had to apply. And I was like, I'm 19. I've done nothing. What do you want my grades from last semester? Like I've done nothing. And the only lab that didn't have an application was this plant lab in the basement of the biology building. And it had a quarantine facility. It had double the amount of light bulbs so people didn't get depressed. It was a whole vibe. And then I ended up falling in love with parasitic plants. And it was one of the few plant labs there. And even up until I graduated college, I wasn't sure I wanted to do plants. And I remember sitting down with my advisor. I had applied to all these different programs. I had applied to a mycology program at the University of Arizona. Like I had no idea what I wanted to do. And he was like, I just remember sitting down with my advisor, and he's like, you're crazy. You love plants. Why are you trying to do anything else? He said it a little bit more. That's like making it nice. He sounded a little bit more aggressive. Like I need tough love. And so he's like, you're stupid. You love plants. What are you doing? And I was like, oh, yeah. Like, okay. And then I was like, I went to grad school for plants. And I remember I'd never taken a plant class before. I asked the grad school committee, I was like, is this a problem? Like, I've never taken a plant class. And they're like, here's a textbook. And that was the end of the conversation.
You'll be fine. It's fine.
You'll be fine.
No big deal.
Yeah. So if you want to get into plants, do it.
Apparently, you can just do it. You can just do it. It's fine.
Just literally fake it till you make it, I guess. I don't know. So it was truly just like a tumbleweed going through life, and I ended up doing plants.
Yeah, I kind of fell into it. It's funny because sometimes I've heard that story more than once. Like sometimes people are like, oh, I grew up doing it. And some people are like, there was funding in a project and I went for it. Or I took a plant class by mistake. And then I have a friend that was on the show a long time ago that I think her undergrad was in like zoology. Or biology with a focus on zoology, and now she teaches like all the plant classes at her college, and it's funny how it like people that are sort of like I think people that have the personality for it and sort of the I don't know I feel like plant people tend to be very outgoing and happy and like very enthusiastic about it. And I think like it just draws that personality for some reason.
I think that's so true. I remember when I was applying to labs, I was obviously so intimidated by these applications. And then the plant lab, they didn't have an application. They were just like, yeah, come in, hang out, check it out. And also, everything else was so cutthroat at UVA. Like, no one talked to each other. There was no collaboration. Everyone was very like secretive and like, don't look at me. And I don't vibe with that. And I remember writing down on my grad school application, like, I am looking for a collaborative environment. And that's one of the reasons why I ended up at Penn State. But I also think that's just very indicative of plant biology. Like, I think we're all collaborative. It's because you're doing genetics in plant biology. You're doing evolution in plant biology. It's not just plants.
Yeah.
And so I think you have to have that outgoing, collaborative, open nature to do it. And that suits my personality perfectly.
Yeah. And it's so awesome because like I'm actually like I'm a horticulturist, right? So I'm very much an applied scientist. I did some basic science through my master's and PhD, but most of it was very applied. And sometimes even going to some of the horticulture conferences, like there's a lot of like standoffishness, which is weird because we like plant flowers and stuff. Like we should be the happiest people. But making friends with botanists and plant biologists, like they've been like the nicest. Like I'm not a botanist. I'm a sort of an applied botanist, whatever. But I'm going to the botany conference in Boise, Idaho this summer, and everyone's like, "Oh no, it's amazing! Come like hang out. We'll find things to do." Like everyone's been so welcoming and cool. Like I love it.
Yeah, I really love the plant community. Whether it's academic or at large, it's really awesome. We had this Saturday, I haven't posted my TikTok about it, so we'll see. But we had a nature journaling club come in. And it's so cool to see people who like, they're not professionals also care about plants. Like it's one of those disciplines that is very extractable to the everyday person. And that's also really great.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you're working on your PhD now in parasitic plants. So one, I mean, they're fascinating. They're just fascinating. But can you give me sort of the cliff notes of maybe how parasitic plants work, like why they're parasites? I'm asking. This is I didn't warn you that you were going to have to defend your research. But just the cliff notes of like why would plants want to be parasites, and then maybe talk a little bit about what you study specifically.
Yeah, so parasitic plants, there's a really big misconception about what are and are not parasitic plants, and I don't want to be pedantic about it, but it is really important to me.
Sure, yeah.
Because a parasitic plant is a plant that makes a physiological, morphological connection to its host. It's not just growing on top of it, it is inside its host. And it's drawing nutrients. What those nutrients are depends on the type of parasite, but generally a parasite is gaining something from the host. And that could be detrimental to the host. It could be not detrimental to the host. That doesn't really matter. But a parasite is defined by that attachment, which is called a haustoria. But parasites are parasitic because they have, chicken before the egg. I'm not sure which came first, but a lot of parasites have lost the ability to uptake nutrients or acquire nutrients from the sun. And so they thrive as parasites because they don't have those other resources.
Yeah. No, that makes sense, that like they can't pull nutrients from the soil. They can't photosynthesize or some combination of thereof. Yeah, that makes sense, because I talk about parasitic plants a little in my intro horticulture class, and that's about the definition I give them. Like, they can't do their thing, so they use the other plants that do their thing. And I know it's probably far more complex than that, but that's about as much as I understand. So can you give an example of like a parasitic plant people might recognize?
Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, so the easiest one that I like to tell people is mistletoe, because everyone knows about mistletoe. There's so many different mistletoes, but the ones that we all think about around like Christmas time, the European mistletoe is Viscum alba. Alba? And it's got like the pretty white berries, but you can find something very similar to that in like Virginia all the way down to Texas. It's called Foradendra lucarpum, and that it's also really pretty. You can actually, this is I'm always here for pop culture references. They never land though. I literally made a TikTok about it. But there's a scene in Cheer, the Netflix documentary Cheer, and I don't know why, but they like pan across oh no, I'm wrong. It's in The Crown, and they pan across trees, and you can see very clearly, because it's winter, these huge balls of green and completely barren trees. That's mistletoe. The Cheer reference is another parasitic plant I talk about. Everyone knows about the Texas bluebonnets, and something that grows alongside the Texas bluebonnets that apparently people just don't care about is Castanea, or Indian paintbrush, and that is a parasitic plant, and it's parasitizing the bluebonnets. And that's
I'm so glad. Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that is one of my favorite plant relationships. Like, I'm in Texas, and so just that contrast between the bluebonnets and the like fiery orange Castanea is just so cool. It's so cool. Yeah. And someone actually asked me one time, like, why are these always growing together? And I'm like, well, let me tell you. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I don't know if you know this, but I did live in Texas way back when I said I'm from everywhere. I mentioned Exxon. My dad worked for Exxon. I lived in Houston, but I never got to see the bluebonnets. I remember like we had like the story, like the story of the bluebonnets, and I just never got to go see him. And I was like,
"Aw, you
can't live in Texas and not see the bluebonnets." It's
no, I know. Yeah, and one of the problems is, and it's funny that you bring that up too, because people are like, "Oh, I'm going to go see the wildflowers," and I'm like, "Okay, like pack a lunch." Like, nothing's close to anything here, and depending on where you are in the state, it's like, "Oh, I'll just drive a cool 3 to 5 hours to go find some bluebonnets."
Like, and you're still only like halfway through Texas.
Someone, I posted a TikTok actually yesterday, and I made a reference to how far something was away in like time instead of miles. I was like, that's about an hour and a half away. And they're like, this is such a Texan thing. And I'm like, listen, the miles are irrelevant. Like, how many days do I have to plan to get where I'm going, like in the state?
I feel that.
It's absurd. It's really absurd. So as far as, okay, so, you know, those are maybe a couple of pretty common ones that people would recognize. What do you study? Which parasitic plants do you look at?
I study a parasitic plant. Specifically, I study a lot of them, but the one that I love the most and the one that got me into parasitic plant research is called Striga. It's Latin for witch because of its bewitching effect on its host. Oftentimes, the host looks like it's like really droughted, and that's what you think the issue is. And then Striga pops up and you're like, oh, no, all hope is lost.
It was just eating you. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's like so many statistics, but the one that stays with me is that when Striga is present, you lose upwards of 90% of your crop yield. So it's absolutely devastating to have in your field, especially because it specializes on our grains. So corn, sorghum, rice, pearl millet, which I don't understand how that's different than regular millet.
I don't either. Huh.
Okay.
I don't know either.
I just know to say pearl millet. And also sugarcane. But this is actually one of my fun facts I never get to talk about. There's one Striga that parasitizes dicots. And it parasitizes like cowpea legumes, which is a huge issue because when they try to plant off crops, oftentimes they're going to plant a legume. And so I feel like we're just marching towards all Strigas making that leap.
Wow.
And we're going to be screwed when that happens. And it's terrifying to think about, but that's why you've got a bunch of scientists out here.
Okay. So this maybe shows some of my own ignorance on the topic, because in my mind, and I know we just talked about one that was not on a woody, but in my mind, parasitic plants live on trees. And I know that's silly. Like, I know that there's lots of them.
A lot of them do.
And that's like the relationship I've built. And I had not really thought about, and you know, with things like mistletoe, it's like, it's there. Yeah. It doesn't really
kill the host.
It doesn't kill the host. It doesn't really. But the fact that this, like, I mean, a 90% yield reduction is that's nuts. Yeah. That's bad.
How
widespread is it?
So it's native to different. So Striga is a genus. Striga is a genus. There's different species. So the three main problem strigas are native to like Africa and Southeast Asia. So you can find it in like India and other places that I'm not going to say because I'm not 100% sure it's accurate.
Sure,
but definitely mainly Africa.
Okay.
However, the big, huge caveat and the reason why there is so much research in the United States on this is because after World War II, this is the story. I don't have any like references for this. This is just the story that's been passed down.
Mm-hmm.
After World War II, a single tank came back to whatever the fort is in North Carolina. It was in Africa in World War II, came back, and it apparently had one striga plant or seed or something on it, and it infected 500,000 acres of farmland in North and South Carolina. And that was all quarantined for upwards of 50 years. They lifted the quarantine recently, the last 10 years or so. But the United States government spent so much money pumping ethylene gas into the soil to germinate those seeds without a host being present, and then they would just die. Yeah. So that's why there's so much research in America about this, is because we had it here. It was a literal ecological disaster, and we constantly have to be on the radar for it. Technically, if you look at maps, it will tell you there's Striga gazeneroides in Florida on Indigofera, but no one cares because it's Indigofera. I don't know.
It's funny because I think we hear stuff about Florida sometimes, and everyone's just like,
Yeah, it's Florida.
It's Florida. They've got snakes and invasive all kinds. Like, just, it's several of my friends that listen to this are from Florida, so that was for their benefit as much as anything else. So, as far as and I don't want you to like give away anything that is.
I'll give away everything.
Super. I don't want you to scoop yourself too much, but like, what are you looking into? Are you looking at control or the biology of it, or something in between?
So you're talking about how you're very applied. I'm very not.
Okay.
There are definitely people. Gabisa at Indiana University, he won a World Food Prize for his work with Striga. He is absolutely doing applied work, getting hosts that are resistant to Striga. We are looking at how parasitic plants evolved. It's not skipping myself because we've already published it, so it's fine.
Sure. No,
so there's, like I said, I'm most interested in Striga, but I actually work with a whole family of parasites called the Orbancaceae. Unfortunately, the common name for that is broom rape. So like we just say Orbancaceae because it's more palatable.
Yeah.
Or I guess, how do you say that? Orbancaceae?
Or I don't even. I'm trying to think how I would say.
KCE people and the I don't know how the other people say it. There's a different way of saying it.
I would probably say it the way you're saying it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I always love. Obviously, I've posted before about like making fun of people's pronunciations, but it's botanical Latin. It's made up. Like it's literally made up.
Yeah.
None of it matters.
No, it's just either fake. It's like pseudo Latin.
Yeah.
Like fake words. Like if you're not careful, you'll accidentally summon a demon. It's fine. Like, but. And it's absolutely. And it's funny because like I'm from Texas, and so I barely speak English, and so like I read some of these Latin. I took 3 years of Latin in high school, and I took Greek in college, and sometimes I'll still like look at these names and I'm like, I don't know, I can't do anything with this.
Yeah, it's too many letters. Sometimes your brain can't.
Yeah, they just all jumble together, and then we make students memorize it, and they hate us for it, so much.
Well, actually. Yeah. We only teach family level. We never get down to like genus species. Which they're welcome.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not going to tell my students that or they'll be mad.
It's trade secret.
So that's cool, looking at the evolutionary history of them and all of that. That's fascinating to me. And again, that's a little out of my wheelhouse, so I love talking to evolutionary biologists.
I was going to say I can level a little bit. So I made a couple TikToks about it. I did a stomatoconductance experiment.
Oh, yes.
With a range of parasites. So we have some very lucky that in this plant family, we have one plant that is fully autotrophic. It is a regular, normal plant. It photosynthesizes. It's got roots. It's got leaves. It's got flowers. It's got everything that you'd want in a plant. And then we have the whole grade of parasitism in that family. So from the parasites that are still green and they only need like some help getting their water, all the way down to plants that don't look like plants. They need 100% of their carbon. They don't even really emerge from the soil. Like you wouldn't think they were a plant if you were to see them. And we have that whole range. So I took some of them, I didn't have all of them, and measured their stomatal conductance, because how is that material moving into from the host to the parasite? It's kind of like osmosis. And that works by having your stomata open or closed. And so we hypothesize that the more parasitic a plant is, the more open the stomata is, and that is scientifically shown over and over again. But, we kind of like talked chicken or the egg, what comes first? Why do you become a parasite? And we were wondering if that autotrophic sister also loses control of its stomata, and it just has its stomata open, so it's losing all of this water, so it has no choice but to like scream help and tap water. That's not true, according to my experiment. Like a non-evolution kind of, I mean, it's still evolution, but it's not like you're looking at genes, you're looking at an actual phenotype. So I feel like that kind of brings it to a surface level.
That's fascinating though. That's so cool.
It didn't work, so it's fine.
No.
That's science though, right?
That's so important. And I think that's something that's really important for people to understand. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because this, and I'm trying not to take us down a road where I'll rant about this for too long, but like a lot of times the things that get published are positive results, right? And positive in the fact that like my experiment worked. Hooray. Like the thing I was looking at. But like some of those negative results in science lead to the big important questions, I think, right? So like, okay, but why didn't this work? If this is not the case, then what? And we don't get to people don't get to read those things. And when I think the fact that like saying, oh no, we tried this and like our hypothesis was wrong and it didn't do anything, like that in some cases for me as a scientist is just as important or more important than we did the thing and it worked and we patted ourselves on the back, right? And we all like to feel good about that, but like the whole landscape of the way the publishing works and the way that academia works, it disincentivizes that, and that's I'll stop there.
I think you 100%, like you had a duet the other day with someone who was like, I saw it. I know, I feel it. I agree.
Because it's such a big thing, and that's maybe another episode sometime that I'll rant about it. Maybe I'll just do it myself so I don't get anyone else in trouble.
No, I was gonna say you have to get like some editor of a journal to like sit here and try to defend it.
Oh man, that would actually be kind of fun. Maybe if I get tenure someday, we'll see.
Fingers crossed for you.
I'm not even tenure track; it's fine. So you spend a lot of time in the greenhouse, right? Yeah. Your research is, I suppose, mostly greenhouse related, and maybe lab related too, looking at some of these more specific things. So you mentioned that you're an assistant, or you're calling yourself the assistant greenhouse, manager, greenhouse assistant. Like, you post the most fun stuff like from your greenhouse. How did you sort of, for lack of a better way to say it, get yourself into that?
Well, I kind of alluded to it earlier. So my advisor, he is an evolutionary biologist, and not even before parasitic plants, but like alongside parasitic plants, had this project called the Floral Genome Project. So he has some really, really cool plant collections in the greenhouse that he wanted to have someone have an eye on. And the assistantship opened up, and he was like, hey, Elizabeth, I think this is a great opportunity for you. And I was sitting here like, I hate hoses. This is a nightmare. Like, I literally remember thinking that. And I was talking to my mom, and she's like, Elizabeth, you hate hoses. Like, very specifically, this is something across the board people knew about me. Like, I hate hoses. They're such a hassle to deal with. Do you not feel the same way?
No, I do. No, I 100%. I'm laughing because I get it. Yeah.
But I applied for it, and I was like, oh, this is so much more than hoses. And it was just, it was a really cool way to apply all the stuff that I was learning and researching in a real way. A lot of the stuff, especially nowadays in grad school, it feels like everything's computational or you're like on your computer a lot. So it's really good for me personally, like it really sticks in my brain to have that physical interaction with what you're working with or what you're learning. Everyone says, like teaching is the best way to learn something. And I wholeheartedly agree. The next step down from that is just physically interacting with the things you have to learn. So that was kind of how I got into it. And then once I learned how to water, which is the hardest job I've ever had, which is absolutely absurd. I tell people all the time, like, I worked at a nuclear power plant one summer. This is harder than nuclear science. Because everything is different every day and you never know what's up and the plants are never happy.
And there is an art to it for sure. Yeah, and that's absolutely. Like when we get new student assistants and stuff here, like that's one thing that we always have to train them on is like, you water this plant this way and this plant this way and this plant this way on Tuesday, but not on Thursday. Like, yeah, 100%.
It's like the Jeremy Bearimy, like the Tuesday I dot. Like.
Absolutely. And then there's some plants that you forget they're there for a month and they're like, I don't care. Like, I don't care about you. Totally fine. And there's some you water a little wrong once and they burst into flame. Like, just done.
Never to be found again on this realm.
They're gone.
We had so our greenhouse, one of the reasons why I think I'm able to have so much fun and I love my greenhouse as much as I do is because we're not just research, we're not just for teaching. We have a goldfish pond. For why? I don't know. We do it. But I love it.
Yeah.
We have plants, like we have a whole room of plants that are just for tours to give away, which just really creates this cool opportunity for us to like engage people who don't normally come to a greenhouse or think about plants with plants. So I started giving tours and that's when I started like kind of doing the silly stuff like with the Nelumbo with the eyes in it. Cause I don't want the greenhouse to just be for the scientists. Like I want it to be something where people can come in and it's like an interactive learning environment. Where it doesn't have to be intimidating and people can be like, I didn't know anything about plants and I walked away with this one cool fact. And so I started trying to like collect little facts about all the plants and then kind of went from there.
That's awesome. It seems like you have so much fun. And I think one of the reasons I love the stuff that you post so much, because I'm like, yeah, it is fun. It should be fun. Like plants should be so much fun. And when we're not dealing with like, rusted door frames or I told you, and it's funny because I think this is a good place to throw this in. I told you I was going to tell you a story before we started recording. So I posted a TikTok about this yesterday. We had these crazy winds. Like I think on campus they measured 90-mile-per-hour straight winds on Sunday.
Like not a tornado, just winds.
Just blowing straight across. It was terrible. Bad day. And we're windy here usually, but that's pretty extra. Like blowing dust, turns bright orange, looks like a dust bowl. It's fun. I'll tag you in that later.
Okay, I can't wait.
So we've got shade cloths over some of our greenhouses and they don't like that very much. I don't know if you it's a big parachute, right? So the wind gets up under there and it tore one of our shade cloths off and wrapped around an exhaust stack from one of our heaters and just broke it off. And so I come in this morning and I'm smelling exhaust and I'm like, oh, that's bad. And so I go in and it's just dangling. So I sent an email and facilities was here with a bucket truck in half an hour and out there, trying to, it was funny because we were all just looking at it what do we do? So you can't climb up on a greenhouse, right? It's we have an old glass house here, 50-year-old glass greenhouse. And so they have these dumb scaffolds. They kind of look like stadium bleachers that lock into the top of the greenhouse so you can climb up it, but it's super sketchy. So they brought the bucket truck. Yeah. But it is always something. Either the wind is using the top of the greenhouse as a parachute or we've got mice or there's a door rusted shut or something weird. So do you have what is your favorite or funniest or just weirdest greenhouse story?
I think to me the most ridiculous one was recently when the pipe burst. It froze and burst. But no one has fessed up to it because I mean, like, obviously it was on an external wall, so it's gonna get cold. But it was the only room that happened in. It didn't happen in any of the other external rooms. And my boss came back because it was like over a stretch of Christmas. And so I cover my boss for weekends, vacations, and holidays. That is my job. So I don't go home. I live in the greenhouse.
Right.
And I gotta set up a cot in there. Like I gotta.
Yeah.
But so I was trying to be like, put on my big girl pants and deal with it myself, and not like text my boss over Christmas. I made so many silly mistakes doing that. I made a video about couldn't figure out how to like pull the lever. It turns out you had to push the pipe in, then pull the lever. Turns out that was the wrong lever. So for that whole week, I was trying to do this all on my own. If I had just texted my boss, there was a lever for just that room, but I had cut off the water to the whole half of the greenhouse. For a whole week, I was watering the greenhouse with a watering can.
Oh, my
The whole
goodness.
week.
Oh, my goodness.
It was absolutely unhinged. And my boss came back and he's like, why didn't you text me? And I was like, I didn't want to bother you. He was like, you could have just pulled this one. And I was like, oh no. And so like that messed everything up, right? Because when you're watering with a watering can, like you don't have the fertilizer feed.
Yeah.
You don't have the XYZ, all of the nonsense that we do to keep our plants alive. And I was like, and some of the rooms had DI water. And I was like, I don't want to carry the watering bucket. And so I water things with DI, and that never works unless you're a carnivorous plant. That never is going to go well.
Yeah.
It wasn't great. My boss is very, very nice to me. He was not pleased. But so we don't know what happened because he was like, well, I don't know how he knows this, but he was like, well, they were turning the heat off at night. And I'm not there at night, and I don't come in super early. So they were turning off the heat, and you could see there were plants along the external wall that got like cold damage.
Yeah.
And no one's fessed up to turning off the heat, but I don't know how to do that. So I don't think it was me.
Yeah. The heat. Good Lord. I get phone calls at 2 a.m. sometimes.
Oh, I saw that TikTok.
When our heat goes out. And it's always like, hey, one of your heaters is out. And I'm like, okay. So like,
what do you want me to do about it? I'm not an engineer.
I'll go look at it, and I come up here and I'm like, yep, it is not working. Can I go home? But you know, and sometimes we'll prop doors open or whatever. Like they're like between greenhouses, there's ways to kind of fix that. But like, it happens a lot less than it used to. We've upgraded some of our stuff, thankfully.
That's nice.
This is, my greenhouse is, it's you'll appreciate the story, I think. So our greenhouses used to be on top of the biology building.
I love rooftop greenhouses.
And this is like a 12, 15 story building, and our greenhouses were up on top of it. And probably, I don't know, maybe 30 years ago, 40 years ago, they moved them here. And I'm glad I was not here for that process. That sounds horrible. Yeah. But like when these were built, they were like top of the line, like the Cadillac of greenhouses. And now it's like a really old Cadillac, and it runs technically, but the mirrors are gone. There's no paint on it. Like
I want to talk to someone with a brand new greenhouse. I want to talk to them and tell them about cockroaches and heaters and sodium halide lights, because everyone has LEDs now.
Oh, we still have we still have some of those, and
have they ever caught anything on fire?
We have. One of them caught on fire. Like it didn't catch anything else on fire, but I came in one day and it was smoking, and I was like, well, that's not great. We had a little explosion one day when the pilot was not lighting on one of our heaters and the gas was running.
Oh,
and then the pilot struck, and it was like, and then like a visible fireball. And what's funny is I had a couple of student workers. This is a few years ago. I had a couple student workers around, and they were like, "You didn't react to that at all." And I was like, "Weird stuff happens here. I don't know what to tell you. It's maybe or maybe not haunted. This was just the ghost being grumpy. I'm not sure." Like it's always something. Lots of fun.
I'm disappointed my greenhouse isn't haunted, but we definitely have cockroaches and toads. So
toads. We don't have any toads. There used to be a tree frog in one of the greenhouses, but he's gone.
We used to have some of our, so I was talking about how like we try to make the greenhouse like a very collaborative learning experience, and like we have friends of the greenhouse. We have undergrads who literally just come in to hang out, and I love that. I love that opportunity for them just to like have a cool space to be. Some of them like ended up having their pets live in the greenhouse, and so we had 2 snakes. They were like they had in their houses whatever the tanks are, so we had like snakes in the greenhouse, and it was really cool. Some people hated it, but I was like, makes sense.
I think it's awesome. It's pretty cool. Well, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to talk about some of the outreach you do, TikTok, just the fun you have with it. And then we talked just a little bit before we started recording about maybe some of your career ideas and future ideas, and I'd like to chat about that a little bit too. So we'll take a quick break, and then we'll be right back. Well, hey there, friends. Welcome to the Midroll. I'm so glad to see you here. As always, it's fun. This is a time that you and I just get to hang out. How's your mom? How's your dad? Just give your dog any scratches lately? I hope they're well, too. Hey, thanks so much for listening to Planthropology. It's because of you that I get to keep making this show. Also, thanks so much to the Texas Tech Department of Plant and Soil Science and the Davis College for supporting and promoting and just letting me do this thing at work. I think it's super cool that they have let this be part of my job. If you want to support Planthropology, there's a whole bunch of ways you can do it. First, you can follow me on all of the social media places. Look for Planthropology, that is anthropology with a PL slapped right on the front. Look for the green background with the tan bristlecone pine, and that'll be me. It's some combination of Planthropology or podcast or an underscore in there, depending on the platform. I haven't been able to cram all those together yet. One day. I am also on the TikTok machine as at the Plant Prof. If you want some shenanigans and want to hear me yell about 5-minute crafts, that is the place to do it. You can also leave a rating and review for the show on Podchaser or Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It gives me the warm fuzzies inside to see your bright and shining 5-star reviews and your kind words. If you have an issue with the show or a suggestion or want another place to say kind and shiny words to me, you send me an email at planthropologypod@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you if you've got suggestions for guests or things I could do better, or again, you just want to say, hey, good job, I like the show. That's a great place to do it. You can go to planthropologypod.com and find old episodes and all things Planthropology, including merch. If you need stickers or a hat or a t-shirt or all kinds of fun stuff, you can get it by going to planthropologypod.com and clicking on merch. You can also go to buymeacoffee.com/planthropology, and for the price of a coffee, you can buy me a coffee. And that's literally what I'll use it on, coffee. I drink so much coffee. And for my recommendation for today, I don't have a trailer for you, but I would love for you to go listen to the Rootbound podcast. I was on the Rootbound podcast a couple weeks ago, episode 61. I could look this up, but I'm not going to because you should listen to all the episodes. They're really great. We talked all about Bradford pears and how terrible they are. And I know that's something that you people love. So go over to the Rootbound podcast, binge your way through the back catalog, and then listen to me hate on Bradford pears for a while. Aside from that, I love you. I do. And you know that I do. I hope you know that I do, because it is true. Get ready for the second half of this episode. We talk about science communication and future plans and life outside of academia and where Elizabeth got her username from. It's a good story. Stick around. All right. Well, we are back. And I, as comes up so often on the show, want to talk about TikTok. Because again, that's where we kind of met. How'd you get into that? Were you like me and just bored in 2020, like in the greenhouse by yourself, and decided to start it?
So it actually started, the first thing I posted on TikTok was not the version of the video you saw, but was the cactus falling on me. And that was born of something from roller derby. There's obviously like roller derby skate involved, and it was like a PR campaign for roller derby gone horribly wrong, like horribly wrong. And I remember sending it to my friends, and they're like, "That's immediately, you have to join TikTok and put it on TikTok." And I did, and nothing happened. So the first time I posted it, the very first video I ever made, I think it had 200 views. And I was just kind of like, I messed around. I did a couple stuff, and then nothing was happening. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to be done with this app. I'm going to post one absolute, for lack of the better term, post and then I'll be done. And that video was my first big video, and it was me talking about all the plants I hate. And it's literally called like I think it's like Plants I Hate from a Plant Biologist, and it's just me like roasting roses because I really don't like roses.
Same, like hard same.
Yeah, roses they're just why?
Yeah,
there's so many better flowers in the world.
Yep. Yes.
And then obviously I had to trash talk Arabidopsis because I think I work with the coolest plants in the world. Why is Arabidopsis, this literal trash plant, this little weak, flimsy, fake dandelion, like the model organism for all of plant biology? It infuriates me to no end. And so I made this video and everyone came for me. They were like, wow, that's like basically telling me I'm gatekeeping plants for like, people who like roses. And I was like, you're not wrong. Like, you're not wrong. I am like, I'm shitting on people's just enjoying flowers. That's pretty messed up. And I was like, I just rolled with it. I made like a 2.0. I asked my other plant biology friends which plants they hated. And then it kind of spiraled. And then I started getting more and more views. And then I reposted the cactus video. And that one blew up. And I was like, okay, I feel like I know what my vibe is. It's like it's kind of like talking about plants in a very aggressive manner, whether that's positive or negative. I try to be like really aggressive about it. And that's how I landed that. It was the cactus video and then the plants I hate video, and they channeled together.
I love it. And yeah, and Arabidopsis, what a terrible plant. What a
terrible plant.
It's terrible. And I, biologists, you can come for me. Botanists, I don't care. I'm not scared of you. There are so many better plants than that.
I agree. There's so many better, like you could just have done canola. I would have been way more happy with canola.
That would represent the overall, I think it grows quick and they're like, yeah, this will work. Whatever. Yeah. But there's like so many better representative species, I think, that would, anyway, we can dunk on Arabidopsis more. I'm trying to, as we're talking, I'm trying to work out how to work the word Arabidopsis into the title of this episode. And I'm not there yet, but I'm going to get there.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. Well, that's fun. And like TikTok's such a weird experience.
It is. I feel like people tell you to like find one thing and just stick with it. But I don't know if you've had this experience. Like even if you find the one thing, a week later, it's no one cares. And so you have to keep switching lanes constantly. And I feel like I'm just like putting on different hats. Yep. The one thing that me watching like your TikToks and I think like Fascinated by Fungi and Renegade Science, I still do it sometimes. And I'm not proud of it, but I really try. I want to be positive. Because that first video that got so big was so negative, I was like, I don't know if that's who I want to be. So my one guiding thing when I make TikToks is like, it's got to be about plants. It's got to be right. I don't want to say anything wrong. I can't give fuel to the fire for the people who don't believe in science. Like,
goodness.
And then I want to be positive because when we're yelling into the void, yelling negatively isn't going to help anyone. So.
Yeah, I love that. And those are great examples. Fascinated by Do you say fungi or fungi?
Oh, I say fungi.
I do too. No, I do too. I'm team fungi, but I also think I say it different probably almost every time.
It's like Caribbean or Caribbean.
Yeah, my brain just like cycles through them. I don't know. But yeah, no, they're a great example. Forrest, Renegade Science Teacher, is such a great example of just giving good information, not backing down from the point that we're all trying to make, right? Like sticking to our guns, but like there are a few accounts out there that I watch their stuff and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, this is so, like, even if the information they're giving is good, I'm just like, oh, like you're just attacking people and that's not great. That's not it for me.
Yeah. I don't think you, obviously, like you, what is it? You get more flies with honey rather than vinegar.
Yeah, that's right.
We're not gonna win anyone over. We're gonna turn more people away if we yell at them.
Yeah. So. Yeah. No, it's fun. And I appreciate the idea for a new TikTok series coming soon. Just about the greenhouse here. Cause I think it is good to show people how some of this stuff works too. Like it's easy to like like, no, TikTok's dumb. Like it has all these problems. And then those are valid arguments. But like, I don't know a better way to reach as many people as I do through that. Just being like, here's this cool science thing. Here's this cool plant thing. Here's this other little thing that you may have never been like exposed to before. And I think good science communication goes where people are. And this is where people are right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I never joined Twitter. So I was, I did, but I wasn't ever like on science Twitter. I think for one conference, once I was like, I'm going to do the science Twitter thing and I'm going to tweet about the conference like talks. And like halfway through, I was just like, this is not worth it. Like I'm paying more attention to Twitter than I am like the talk. And like, it wasn't doing it for me. And then Instagram, it doesn't feel like, I don't know, maybe Reels is changing it, but Instagram feels very static versus TikTok is very dynamic. And I think it's a really great opportunity for us to do like our science bits, but also have that entertainment quality that makes it pop and like be pop science versus just like, here's a news article.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100% agree. And that kind of like thinking about different ways to communicate science and different paths in science, I think leads me to one of the last things that I want to talk to you about, and something that we kind of chatted about earlier is like, what's next for you? You know, PhDs take however much time they take, and you'll be Dr. Kelly one of these days, and that's super cool. And you should make everyone call you that.
No, I think people colloquially, they started calling me Doc Liz. So I think that's what it'll be.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I like that. What do you want to do? What's next for you? Do you foresee a future in academia? Are you going into industry? Something in between?
I used to joke, or I still do, this is not a past tense thing. When people are like, what are you going to do after your PhD? I'm like, die. I don't know. There's nothing else past the PhD. It's just an empty void. I don't know.
I understand that feeling so well.
Yeah. Like it, you know, what else is left? For a really long time, even from when I was young, like my goal was grad school. So then when I got to grad school, I was like, oh shit, like I have to have a plan next. Like this was the plan. Now what?
Yeah.
And for a long time, like I did want to be a scientist, like whether, I don't know if I ever really wanted to be a research professor. I don't know if that was ever anything I wanted to be, but I think I always loved being in the lab. I still love tissue culture. If someone wants to just hire me to do tissue culture 24/7, I will do it. I will sit in the hood and I will just all day. I love tissue culture. But I walked into the greenhouse and we created that community, and it was so much more than just science. It was teaching, and it was engaging, and it was outreach, and it was watching people learn. And that just, it took me from the very sterile, literally sterile environment, very isolating environment that working in a lab can be. And it put me right in the public where I can see what science does to people. And I was like, that's it. It has to be that. It's, whatever form that takes. If I am, I don't know if I'm cut out to be just a science communicator. That's a lot. I think that would require me to be better at Twitter. But somehow doing something with plants that engages with the public, I just want to do that. And I think there's lots of opportunities like in botanical gardens, arboretums, stuff like what we do in greenhouses. Because greenhouses, even you just mentioned, you have your collections. They're not just for research. I also do still enjoy helping people with their research. I just don't want to be in charge of it. So this like whole, the greenhouse environment is currently my front runner, but I'm not going to turn down a job is what I tell everyone. Yeah. But I think botanical gardens, arboretums, like that kind of public garden situation really speaks to me, as it's still science, but it's public facing. I really like that.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. We should talk again when you get closer to being done, because I know a few people that you might need to talk to
okay.
about that. No, that's really cool. That's really cool. Cause and I think if I was not doing what I do now, that's probably and I actually, it's weird because I'm in academia, but that's kind of what I do, right? I run this garden, I run this greenhouse, and I get to teach, and then just like record podcasts, and like I'm at work. This is my office at work, and but it's such a cool thing, and I'm glad you talk about it, because we get pigeonholed a lot into, oh no, you got to go get a tenure track job. It's like, no, you don't. No, you don't.
So I'm really lucky though. Like I mean, I haven't heard horror stories. I can just imagine it though. Like I never came out and told my advisor, like it's a coming out thing. I never like straight up told my advisor. I never was just like, I don't want to be a scientist, but I have this weekly Zoom call with collaborators who were former scientists in my lab. So I'm very good friends with them. And I was just talking about how like, yeah, I think I want to manage a greenhouse or like work in this outreach avenue someday. And my advisor like joined the call mid conversation. He was like, oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
But he wasn't like, he was so supportive. Like the next meeting we had, he was like, well, I just want to make sure like you're getting everything out of this degree that you need to do what you want to do. Like I want to make sure you're learning in the greenhouse, because I'm not a horticulturalist. I'm a plant biologist.
Sure.
He's like, I want to make sure you're learning those skills. And I'm sure my greenhouse manager is showing you all that stuff. And I was like, yeah, like I'm doing really good. I feel like this is, I'm like really well set up. And he's like, okay, I just want to make sure. And I feel like a lot of academic advisors don't support that. So I've been really lucky in that regard.
That's awesome. Sounds like one of the good ones for sure.
Yeah.
That's very cool. That's very cool. And yeah, I think garden life, greenhouse life, it's pretty good. It's pretty fun.
No, not to say that teaching isn't where it's at. I just think the research professor aspect of it, where you're teaching and research, that's got to be hard to split your focus like that.
Oh, I know. And I talk to so many friends that are, early career, kind of like I am. And, they've got, tenure track research appointments, and on paper, it's like, oh, you're 40% this and 50% that. That's not real. Like that, those numbers, it's 100% this and 100% this. And like, I think that's one of the reasons I haven't, at least to this point, pursued like tenure track a little bit more, because I enjoy it's not that I don't like research, because I think it's fascinating and I do a little bit of research, but I like being able to teach. I like being able to like work with, not just like grad students, but like with undergrad workers and all kinds of different people. Like it gives me so much more freedom to do. So I think someone listening to this who's a student who is, either in grad school, thinking about grad school, trying to figure out what to do when they grow up, which I still think about a lot. I don't know. I don't feel like a grown up yet. I still look for an adultier adult a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Like surely there's someone else who should be handling this right now. And I don't know. I think that there are so many options, and getting a master's, getting a PhD, like any advanced degree, like you don't just have to do one thing. You can do so many things.
Yeah. I think, and I don't know if this is lucky or if it's what shaped me, but every single grad student I worked with in undergrad left science. And then both of my undergrad PI and my current PI, they talk a lot about like, what if? I remember my undergrad PI was just literally like, he's like, oh, I should have gotten out of the game like in the 80s. Like, he's like, I should have done a startup. Like he talked a lot about it. And so I don't know if I was lucky I saw that, or if that's what shaped I don't know if academia is for me. But I had a grad student, she got her PhD and went into patent law. I had a grad student went and got his MBA. So I have a lot of examples of people who went to grad school, were in postdocs, and they're just like, nah, I'm going to do something else. And so I think that's definitely gave me the permission almost to do grad school, because I am passionate about parasitic plants and I do want to keep studying them, but maybe I don't have to be a hardcore scientist. I can just yell about parasitic plants from the top of a botanical garden.
I think that's goals. I mean, I like it. I like it. Gosh, I just looked at, we've been talking for an hour and it went quick and I love it. So as we kind of wrap up, a question I ask all of my guests, and I throw this at people, and it's funnier sometimes when they don't know it's coming, because they're like, oh, what? Come on. If you were going to leave our listeners with something, like someone who is listening to this episode, like if they were going to go away with like one thing, and it could be advice about grad school or life or parasitic plants, whatever it is you want, like what would you want to leave behind?
Oh I have one for each. So
Okay.
for life, this is what I say in roller derby all the time. If you don't fall at least once during practice, you're not trying hard enough, which I think is really applicable everywhere. Like if you're not failing, did you try really hard?
Yeah.
Some people are just naturally good and I'm mad about it, but like
Yeah, I'm not that guy.
for everyone else, if you didn't fail at least once, like what were you doing? And I think those are always great opportunities to learn. For grad students specifically, and this is something I tell myself a lot because it's hard when you get stuck in the weeds. And today, I literally texted my advisor. I was like, I'm in the battlefield of easy code ML and I'm wounded and there's no backup. And it's hard and I don't know why I keep getting errors. So when stuff like that happens, I try to remind myself like, I get to do exactly what I want to do every day. I am studying exactly what I want to do. Every day I wake up and I get to look at parasitic plants and work on parasitic plants. And that's so rare. And like it, the mundane of it all, the everyday of it all, you can get really lost in it. But like the big picture is every day I wake up and do exactly what I want to do. That's so incredible. And so I try to remind myself that as a grad student. And I hope other grad students can keep that in mind too.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's such good advice. I love it.
Nothing about parasitic plants, though.
Nah, it's
no
fine.
advice about that.
Don't stay still long enough for them to grow on you. Whatever.
Yeah.
Gosh, that was so good. Thank you so much. I so much enjoyed. Like, I like finding people that I feel like are in so many ways kindred spirits, and I just really enjoyed your insight and just your personality. You've been a delight.
You're so nice.
So, where can people find you? Do you want to be found? I mean, you're on TikTok, so I assume you sort of do at least a little.
Okay, I know we're like wrapping it up. People have found me. Like I've never made it a secret about who I am, but people have found me, which is wild, which is one of the reasons why I haven't like been like, hey, my name's Elizabeth Kelly and I run the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
People before I said anything like that have found me. But you can find me. I'm findable.
Okay.
So my TikTok is unfortunately at old crotch face.
Okay. I go ahead. No, finish your thought. And then I have a question about that.
And then I actually just changed over my Instagram because it used to be at Greenhouse Goblin, but now I was like, well, they should match. So now it's at old crotch face 2.
Okay. Where did that come from?
I've also never told this story, so you're getting a lot of new things today.
Yeah.
So Old Crotch Face is a derby thing. So Swifty is my normal derby name. It's what's printed on my jersey.
Uh-huh.
But when people can't read, and so sometimes people will say Swiftly, and that really grinds my gears. It's not a difficult name. Just say Swifty. And so when people say Swiftly, I will skate up to them and be like, if you can't get it right, you can call me Old Crotch Face, which is a name that came from one of my friends broke her nose on the track and was bleeding.
Oh my gosh.
And I had a towel and my friend grabbed my towel and was like mopping up the blood and like put it between her legs. And I was like, no, I'm going to use that. And then I'm going to feel it. And someone was like, oh, you're going to be Old Crotch Face. So the name comes from Derby. And one time a guy didn't correct himself. I said, like, if you can't say Swifty, you're going to have to call me Old Crotch Face. And he was like, bet. So for a whole game in front of my mother, they called me Old Crotch Face.
Fantastic. Yeah. That's so funny. I'm glad I got that story. That's a good story.
It's pretty traumatic. Like the whole story.
No,
in itself, like,
no,
she
it
broke her nose, but it's like it ended up fine. Now I have this TikTok handle and I have brand recognition and I can never change it.
Yep. No, you're stuck with it forever. Stuck with it forever. Elizabeth, that was so much fun. Thank you for being on.
It's so much fun talking to you. Thank you for having this podcast.
Yeah, well, no, I appreciate it, and we'll have to have you back again sometime, and maybe deep dive a little bit more. Yeah, you can. Yeah, I'm down anytime. Okay. Anytime. Y'all be willing to fall down. Try hard enough at whatever you're doing that you trip a few times and learn a lot from it. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for being on with me. It was worth the wait to have you on the show. You were wonderful and so much fun, and I can't wait to have you back on again, and I wish you all the best in the world. Thanks so much again to you, the listener, for being a part of Planthropology. You are what makes this fun and possible and such a joy to do. Thanks one last time to the Tech Department of Plant and Soil Science for all the support and for just letting me do this at all. Next week, we've got actually 2 back-to-back episodes coming up. in the next 2 weeks. If you're listening to this when it comes out, next week will be spring garden tips. And then the week after will be the history of plant domestication. And we're going to talk a little bit about whether we domesticated them or they domesticated us. The truth is probably somewhere in between. I love you folks. You make this worth doing. Keep being cool plant people. Keep being kind to one another. If you haven't been kind to one another yet, maybe give that a try. That'll help a lot. Be safe, be good, be kind, and we will talk real soon.